Hey y'all, my name is Celine and I'm the founder of Flowly and today's Health Talk. As some of you might know, Flowly is a mobile platform for chronic pain and anxiety management. We use biofeedback for relaxation training and even VR to help you learn how to regulate your nervous system. I'm super honored to have Ryan and Kent here today, who are the founders of Neuro. Today is going to be more of a conversation between us three, so let's just kick it off with some questions, but then we can jump into a more casual conversation.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you for being here. I love both of your stories, and I just feel like I can't do justice to what Neuro does. So I just thought I'd ask you guys, what does Neuro do?
Well, so Neuro in general is like putting health in your pocket. The idea of like health being so unapproachable in the form of supplements or anything that is based on something that doesn't become habitual use prevents people, in our belief, it prevents people from being the best version of themselves. So ideally, if we put it into gum and mints, because that is something that is so approachable to anyone in any format, in any situation.
Yeah. You guys have a bunch of like gums and mints that are focused on different things, right? That's what I thought was really cool.
That's what we've evolved into. So when we first started back in the end of 2015, it was like an energy gum. It was like Neuro gum. It was caffeinated with natural caffeine, L-theanine, B vitamins. And then it slowly evolved into now doing energy mints. And then we're like, wait, now that can be just the form factor to put like other types of supplementation in there. So we have a calm product that just came out last October. And then we have a multivitamin gum and mint coming out later this year.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
How does one start a mint and gum? Like, are you guys making it at home in the first phases, or are you working with a lab? Like, how does that work?
We always knew that there were certain types of supplements, ingredients that would work effectively for the human body, right? Mm-hmm. Like similar to you, like there's certain techniques, right? You take those things, and then for us, it was like, how do we transfer that into something that is more approachable?
Yeah.
And that was the pathway into making it into gum and mints more than anything else. Yeah.
It was always like the form factor, because we took all these ingredients in pill form anyway. And
people know about it.
And people know about that. So like all the research that you see on like NIH or like people, studying like what like those actual active ingredients do for you, we just kind of repurposed and just put it in a more accessible format.
So what inspired this? Like, how did you guys think to even start this or even change the form factor?
Well,
it started back in like college.
In college, like I was training with, I was like training with the Imperial Guards in Japan. I was training with the Judo Olympic team out in Japan. I was fighting Muay Thai. Ryan was a cross country like superstar, right? Like captain of his cross country and track team in high school. Like for us, like being able to advance the levels of our physical system with our body was always important. And we knew that supplementation was the means of being able to do that. When we were on a scuba diving trip after college, which there was like college, Ryan's injury, like there's so many things that kind of come into play. Like there had to be something that supplemented our lifestyle flexibly. And during a scuba diving trip, we both realized like it can't be coffee, it can't be pills. It has to be something that's in our pockets, and that was gum and mints.
Damn.
Yeah. So scuba diving was kind of really that catalyst, because we were taking this for years. After my injury, I looked at Kent. He was like one of my like stable rocks that like helped support me through that transition. And then I just started training into like doing marathons with the Paralympic team, and it was like supplementation was so key. Like training is huge, but really your diet is like another 50% of like what you kind of see in terms of performance.
Yeah.
And it was during that scuba diving trip, we're like, you know what, like there has to be a better way to take it. Right. Yeah. And that was really...
I mean, it's the same with like mental health, right? Like if you're eating bad, you're taking care of your body in like a negative way. Like there's no way that you could positively enhance yourself no matter what you're doing.
Yeah. It's really interesting because we were just talking about this the other day, where a lot of mental health, so anxiety, even having panic attacks, depression, it actually all starts in the gut. And there's actually a nerve called your vagus nerve that modulates between the brain and the gut. Yeah. And it's just I think what's really interesting is we handle it kind of from we call it the bottom up, which is where we teach people to control their body to then manage the rest of their physical and psychological health. But then you guys are directly inputting through supplements or gums and mints to affect that whole system as well.
Right.
Yeah, the brain, it's like Descartes' like mind and body perspective has evolved into like a better understanding of how the mind and gut play a role in each other. And it's like, even within the probiotic space, though, like as an ever evolving thing, we are starting to understand that unless you have better gut flora in general, or unless you're putting better ingredients in general into your body, you're not going to have a performance rate that's acceptable to your optimization, whatever that level of optimization that you're trying to reach is.
So do you guys see people coming to use Neuro for like health optimization or performance or athletics, or is it like to help? I guess you guys have different focuses now. So do you kind of see a diversity in people coming to use Neuro?
We are not a company that's trying to like, we're not the company that's being like, this is the end all be all. This is the NZ, whatever, like unlimited drug that's going to change your life. We are a company that's introducing you / making it so accessible to be a healthy person that everyone can take it, you know, and if you want to learn more, then that's great. Like, but at the end of the day, like we're a gum and a mint company that only fits so much into our products. But if that's the seed, a very effective seed at that gets you into the mindset where you can make your, like use it slowly, whatever, like to get you a better person, then we did our job.
Yeah. Or a supplement, like we're a complement to like what you should be doing in your lifestyle anyway, like day to day.
I think that's really cool because that's kind of how we think of ourselves too, where we have this like cool virtual reality form factor and like biofeedback, but it's kind of just a way of enticing people and opening up that door to say like, hey, not everything has to be medication. Not that you can't have it, but it can be a supplement or it can help. There's an alternative to try. And I think a lot of times that's what we are to a lot of people.
I think about like the general distrust that a lot of people have in doctors in general. And the reason that, and why people fall into holistic medication, the reason that exists is because a doctor can speak in tongue to you that they only understand, but then holistic medication is understandable. And to us, like, why can't we combine those two worlds? Why cannot we not be an approachable way that you're becoming just healthy? You know, like, and that's in our personality too. Yeah. Like we want to be friends with you. Like you're not going to trust someone that's just like all up in their ego. But you'll trust someone where it's just like, hey, like these are the ingredients. It's simple. Like, and you can use it in any situation in your life.
And I also feel like not only sometimes our doctors or like in the healthcare system, it's very hard to navigate through it. But a lot of times I know for us, when we work with chronic pain patients or people with anxiety, they know their body better. So a lot of times they know like, oh, I need this supplement or I need this alternative tool or I'm looking for this because my doctor hasn't brought it up or my doctor won't let me have it. That's what we see a lot in our population.
And everybody's different. Like no two cases are like really the same. Like you have like similar symptoms, but people react to things differently. So I thought what was interesting about yours is like people who use this app show like a reduction in use of like opiates. And like for me, like after my injury, every doctor was just prescribing every opiate. Because it was like the easiest one. They're like, oh, like you obviously look like you have a clear indication of why you need this. So like Norco, Oxy, Methadone, everything. And I just kept taking all of that. And I just ended up building this crazy tolerance. And then I realized like maybe like a year and a half into it that the withdrawal pain, like after 4 hours after the wear off, like the pain came back so much stronger. And I became so reliant on that. So like having like different ways of like, hey, this is not just the one way that's supposed to solve it. Like let's look at alternatives. I think that's a really cool way that you guys have built this.
And all these doctors are just prescribing it just because like they have a perspective where it's just like, okay, if you're feeling this, I prescribe. It's algorithmic, not natural.
This, then that, And for me, it was like 2009, 2010. It was like, I mean, the start of this huge opiate craze. I mean, it's always kind of been there. Man, But like Oxy and all these medications were like heavily prescribed and overprescribed with that. So I thought that was like pretty cool that you guys built.
And even now, like we've worked with patients where they need it to function, but even if they wanted it, they don't have access to it anymore because of the heavy regulation around it now. So I think now more than ever, people I think there's just this shift to consumer health where health in general and wellness is moving more into the person's hand themselves so they can control their experience of it. But I wanted to ask you specifically, Ryan, because, we work with people with a lot of chronic pain.
Yeah.
And you had a really big injury. And I know you have you had chronic pain. I don't know if you still have it, but how did you manage it? What was that journey like for you?
I mean, I still go through chronic pain. Yeah. So from my accident, I had a burst fracture in T9. So around that area of injury, I get a lot of neuropathic pain. So similar medications that they were giving people with diabetic nerve pain, and then low back pain. And from day one, it was just opiates was kind of the prescription from doctors. And that became so routine for me. So the first 2 years was a big struggle because I felt like I was so reliant on something. And then I realized I don't want to be dependent on this. It made me really groggy. And I Kent would come visit and I'd be always kind of tired, not fully there. And quit cold turkey about year 2. And then I've never taken an opiate ever since. It was a huge it was hard to obviously get off of something that was so such a big part of your life. I had a strong grasp. But I realized that every night I would wake up in cold sweat, I needed this medication and just make me feel better, get me into even. And I was well, what if I can just start baseline and embrace the pain, realize that it's there, and then do other things that get my mind off
What
of
a strange way for it. It's so conditional too.
Yeah.
You get conditioned into the system.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's interesting because opioids were actually developed for acute pain, not necessarily chronic pain. And
that's
actually
a big difference.
Yeah, that's
it's
a huge
acute,
difference.
Yeah. If you're first injured, opiates to relieve that. But it was never intended to be a long-term solution.
Yeah.
But that's kind of the route it kind of turned into.
So how do you on a day, let's say if you had some sort of pain flare-up throughout the day or in a week, how do you manage? Do you have tools? We always say for our users and members, they have toolboxes. Do you have a toolbox?
I think it's breathing exercises, recognizing it's there. I think hydration was a big part of it too. I would realize that if I was dehydrated, I would tend to have worse nerve pain. But it took years for me to really develop, that toolbox of these are the symptoms I'm having. This is when I'm experiencing them. This is probably the reason why. And I can kind of check off.
It's crazy that it's you being more in tune with your body than ever before.
But I think because, that's a great point. Because when you have opiates, everything's a distraction. There's all this noise that gets canceled out. But when you have all the noise, then you can start pinpointing where that noise is coming from.
You don't ignore it.
Yeah, and you don't ignore it.
Yeah.
So that's in a way you got to embrace the pain to kind of find a solution and
I think it's such a balance act because we for us, our team, we work in clinical, as you guys know, we do clinical trials and we work with so many medical professionals. We're never oh, no opioids because we understand that a lot of people need them and they're very necessary for some people. But it does prevent you from listening to your body. So actually studies have shown that when you're on opioids longer than 6 to 12 weeks, it actually impedes your recovery process because you can't go to PT, or when you're in PT, you can't even feel when there's pain. So you can't stretch accordingly, etc.
Yeah.
And
I had this one experience. So I had really bad nerve pain in acute rehab, and they prescribed me Cymbalta, which is a really heavy. It's an antidepressant, but it also has nerve pain. But it makes you super drowsy. And during PT, I was in the gym. I fell asleep on the machine.
Oh my gosh!
Dude,
to the point, it was it was a shoulder press thing, and I literally felt myself, and then I drooled on my shoulder. I was knocked out. And I was I can't take this medication. But people are constantly prescribing.
That's unnatural.
It's unnatural.
That's unnatural.
Yeah.
I think gabapentin is one that's get
took gabapentin a lot. Yeah. Neurontin.
I was just talking to we have a patient advocacy advisor in our company, and she herself, she has Hashimoto's and sleep disorder. She was put on Cymbalta, and a lot of times, she'll routinely go through Cymbalta, but then she'll have to wean herself off of it because she doesn't want to stay on it. Yeah. But every time the weaning process it's always a week or two. That's very hard recovery, really hard weaning, and it's just it's really tough. And I think she was saying that Flowly helps her through that process because kind of like what you guys were saying is, I think being in touch with your body is so important, but also so hard. And that's kind of like the basis of biofeedback, which is the ability to literally see how your body is doing in real time and then
That's
learning
cool.
to control it.
Right.
Yeah.
The thing, it's like understanding the mechanisms of your body. Like no one's visually able to see how the body is.
Yeah.
They just feel it, right?
Right.
And like with an application that's allowed you to do that changes the way you view the the perspective in general.
People are always like, oh, it sounds so voodoo-y, but do you guys know like Wim Hof,
of course.
He's like the ultimate biohacker. But he does biofeedback, and I'm always like, I always bring up this example, even though it sounds so crazy. It's just there are these people that do like Arctic welding. So it's like sub-zero temperatures, it's so cold, so they're really prone to frostbite. So they actually use biofeedback to train for 18 months so they could bring blood flow to their hands on command.
It's amazing.
It's amazing. It's amazing.
They do a lot of studies on like Buddhist monks, and, like their breathing and like their brain, like how it activates, like just on.
Now we're all like trying to breathe.
It's like so I went through like a whole Wim Hof like program actually, and it's all hyperventilation based, which is so interesting. Like for me. Because I used to take cold showers. I don't anymore because I like to live my life comfortably. But there was like a period of like 2 years where I just only took cold showers. And
it's so miserable.
I take cold showers for fun. Like I like.
So fun is not the word I would use. But it is interesting to be like, if you could put yourself in a mental state where to me, Wim Hof and his methods were like accepting that was what you're gonna. That's what you're going to expect more than anything else. More so than like your body's able to handle it.
Wait, what is it that you're going to expect?
A cold shower.
Oh, like accepting the reality. Yeah.
Like to me, like when I was entering into the cold shower, it's like I'm gonna accept the fact that it's a cold shower. It's not that it doesn't feel any colder, but it's just like, okay, this is it. Like in the same way, like when
so you're bracing for it, right?
Like when you're in pain or when you're in like stress, it's like you make that the norm, right?
Yeah.
Like you accept the status quo of what the environment is going to be.
And you know what I think is interesting about that? Because I was listening to a bunch of like, I was in a room with a bunch of biohackers once, and they were saying that kind of like what you were saying, they accept that it's going to be a cold shower, but also that it's going to be over too. And that's how I feel for a lot of our chronic pain patients we work with is like, what helps them is knowing that pain, it's going to be there, but it's also, it will end too. There's a cycle to it.
It's ups and downs.
It's ups and downs, yeah.
Always the case too. Like you never, like I will never, you take whatever, like any codone, right? Like oxycodone, whatever, and you're not going to expect it to be an end all be all.
Yeah, it's not one pill that's going to fix it. It's going to wear off.
Nothing is a panacea in life.
Yeah.
Like that's it. Like, and same thing with cold showers. It's always going to be cold.
Yeah.
Do you experience pain or anxiety that like you relate to that you use Flowly for, or
like people always ask me because we started this pain company, and I don't have chronic pain, but I grew up around people in a lot of pain because my parents ran terminal stage pancreatic cancer clinical trials since I was really, really young till now.
Yeah, sounds
and so intense. And all the people that I would grow up around since I was like 5 years old, they were in intense pain. People close to me would pass away from morphine overdose and not even the cancer itself. Wow. And so pain was something that my father had actually worked on. He had passed orphan drug designation through FDA for pancreatic cancer pain.
Wow.
So so it's kind of almost like it's in the family, but I think when I grew up
the treatment of pain is in the family,
but it's intense that I realized there's just so many people that have pain. And also, by the way, when I say pain, I mean physical pain, psychological
mental pain, I think is
social pain. Like,
it all ties into each other.
It's a biopsychosocial disease. And so it's just so many people are impacted, but there's so little conversation around it. And that's really why we wanted to come in on it.
I almost thought like hindsight 2020, like in the rearview mirror, I look back like on my pain and it's there. It's I can physically feel it.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of time in the beginning was almost like the mental, emotional pain that like was overwhelmingly a huge part of that. So like the emotional pain of like, oh, my life's very different. Like I'm told from doctors I'll never walk again. My life's gonna be very different. Impact on lifespan, whatever. And then the mental pain of like, who am I? Like I was just discovering, like figuring out who I was.
You were so young.
So I was like 19. I think that has a very big impact on the physical pain as well.
Yeah.
But now years later, I think as you go through life and you realize that, oh, that wasn't the end, like there's still a lot more life to live.
Yeah.
Then the physical pain almost seemed to dissipate. But I feel like if I were to compare it, I feel like the physical pain is actually 1-to-1. It's just my mental and emotional state helps.
How did you have anxiety, or did you go through bouts of like depression or depressive states, and how did you manage that?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I think in the beginning, there's like the period of denial, like the first couple of months where you're like, no, this like couldn't happen to me. Like I'm going to walk out of here. And then like, you know, reality sinks into, I think, your friends, family first. And then you realize like, oh shit, this is pretty real. Like I'm being told that this is going to be my life. This is the routine that I need to live. And then all of a sudden you feel like you're fit in the box. And then that's where I think the depression kicks in. And I think that mental state amplifies the physical pain in a lot of ways. So I try to take it day by day.
Yeah.
Thinking too far in the future was overwhelming, created more anxiety. I was just like, okay, let's go back to school. Let's just finish this class. Let's just graduate.
Right.
Let's find a job. It was like step by step.
It's like the 5 stages of grief that they always talk
For
about.
sure.
Yeah.
And I used to deny that. I was like, there's no way I'm going to be fine. But
Yeah.
then sure enough, you go through this.
You
But
go
did you
cycle.
did you work with therapists or coaches, or this is like a realization that you came to yourself, or with friends and
I
family?
think, so I was too stubborn to see like a neuropsychologist or any therapist, because I was like, why would you know my problems? I was like kind of super stubborn, especially 19. I was like, I don't need to talk to you. You don't know what I'm going through. And so like I kind of harbored like a lot of that internal emotion. And I think that almost made my recovery slower in some respects. Like I
Because
feel
why
like,
would you trust someone that never went through what you
right.
went
Well,
through?
that was
Yeah.
like my mindset. I was like,
Yeah.
wait, like I don't need to talk to a stranger. I have friends and family that like amazing that support me. They get me.
Yeah.
And then at the same time, like they weren't going through that, and I wanted to shield them from what I was going through. So I was just like I was alone with my thoughts pretty often. But it took kind of like pretty much years to get to the point where things are actually pretty good.
Yeah. That's really, I think that's really, so you were asking if I use Flowy myself. Like this past year, I had someone really close to me was like depressed and also had an eating disorder, and it was just really, really hard. Yeah. And I think that it took so much support from the family, but also from like therapists and people around to really work through that process. It just, and Flowy was part of that process for him and also for me, because I think that as like a person in their life, it was really challenging. And I think it really opened my eyes to having even just a little taste of that experience, and made, I think, myself and even my whole team more empathetic to all of the people we work with. So I think it's a really,
I mean, you're a very empathy forward brand. Like to be able to do what you do, you have to understand.
It is. And it's been a really, I mean, I think it's been hard, but also really rewarding that we get to see firsthand, and I think you guys probably experienced that too, firsthand what your product or what the experiences you build can do for people, right? Like you see the immediate effect.
Oh yeah, it was just
The feedback you get is pretty inspiring. I think that's like your motivation a lot of the times. Because it is a grind. I mean, you know, like starting a company with joy.
Is.
And
Startup
like,
is,
it's
my
tough.
gosh.
And then you get certain feedback from people saying like, oh, I use this changed like my life in this way. It's like, oh, okay, like, all right, let's keep going.
Yeah.
It's like that motivation. It's a little like dopamine hit.
Yeah.
It's tough. I mean, we have a friend that like recently committed suicide. Like very, very recently. And it's like, there is a part where it's just like you wish that they had something, you know.
Yeah.
Like I like honestly, like I'm walking around and like I think about him. Like right, like out of the blue. And like the impact that you have not existing is so interesting. Like there's like this, I don't know, psychology that's associated with human behavior, and
that was a tough one.
Yeah.
I mean, he was like,
so
yeah, he was an amazing kid. He was really, really sweet, like very generous. And you don't know sometimes what people
you don't
know what they're going through.
That's the thing. It's like a big, it's hard.
In a lot of ways, I think for me, it was almost like people assumed that there was like the pain I was going through because of the physical wheelchair and all that stuff. But 100% of people are going through something that you can't see. Yeah. And I think that becomes really difficult. And I think with Adam, like, I mean, he was like a friend. He supported us from day one. Yeah. He was a professional like motocross rider, like a neuroscience major, like, And
he took so many precautions to make sure that his brain was in the right place. Like he did everything.
Every cryo, infrared sauna. Like he did
exercise,
heart rate variability, exercise
Wow.
every day. Like he knew his body really well.
There's only so many things you can track though, and then that gets us back to our first point, right? Where it's like there's no panacea. Like there's nothing that is going to be the ultimate drug, or there's nothing that's going to be the ultimate drug or medication or physical activity that's going to get you to a point where it's going to fix your problems. So in that case, it's management, and that's a big thing, right, in the medical world now. Like, what does management mean? Like
it's not even pain treatment, right? It's pain management.
Pain management.
Exactly.
Yeah, it always is. And even with
It's
like
balance.
mental health, it's management, because it's not like you cure. At least like one of the things I was learning
unless
about,
you like lobotomize them.
there's you can't cure it, but I also think it speaks to other parts of life also, right? Like you cannot cure yourself where you don't have a bad day, or you don't have a flare up, or you don't feel, even if you don't have anxiety, you're not diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder, everybody feels anxious at some point in their
100%.
lives. And I think it's so important that's why I think what you guys do and what we do is like so important, being tools to help people manage that on a day-to-day basis, because without the tools, we're taught like how to do math in school, but we're not taught how to manage our emotions on a daily basis. What do we see more, like our emotions or math? Like,
well, you're taught how to do math, but you don't know how to manage your finances. Or
this is an education system we can dive into for hours. But I think it's just so important to have more conversations like this. I
think it's just super healthy.
Yeah.
Because like for years, like people didn't talk about their mental state. Like especially like 2009, 2010, I didn't think that was.
Dude, 1980s Burt Reynolds being like a fucking macho man. Like,
we're also all Asian.
No platform.
We're also all Asian Americans too, and I think there's
you
also
never share
stigma.
Your feelings with your parents.
Yeah, and especially like in immigrant communities, people of color, like it's just there's so much stigma around it that I think more people in those communities need to talk about it as well.
For sure.
Yeah.
Was it different for you as your dad was in pain management and understood that?
Yeah, I have to say that.
Were you comfortable talking about pain with your parents, or was that still like you felt like I got?
Yeah, I have to say I came from a very different type of family, so I was really, really lucky growing up that we talked about everything.
That's great.
Like
it's a healthy, like open table. Talk
open,
about it.
and I think in a way it was really. It helped me a lot, because even when I went through challenges, or like even the process you were saying, doing a startup is so hard, I was able to talk my way through it with them and always verbalize and try to bring language to what I was feeling, which is, I think, a lot of times the hardest thing to do, because a lot of times we know we're in pain, but we don't know what we need. And like what we can ask for support and etc. So I think that was really helpful.
Do you talk about, like, for example, with your parents, for me, until not like super recent, but talking about relationships, talking about like, were you able to be open about things like that? Yeah.
So the joke is that my mom knows everything I know, because I tell her everything.
Well,
that's so
hard. But that's so healthy.
Exactly.
That's so healthy. I think that's super healthy.
Yeah, so that's the upbringing I grew up around. But then I think I realized that especially when I moved to the States here, I noticed, especially in a lot of like Asian American friends their families, that it was much different. Or not even Asian American, just like most families are like that. And even when we started Flowly, what I thought was really interesting is we have a call line. So people can call us for us to help set up their, kits and how the experiences work. And people would just share stories, like when we got on the phone. And we always made it a rule that we don't cut people off. We let them share their story, because we're grateful that they're sharing their story with us, but also that I think it's important to let people have the safe space to share.
Awesome.
It's always that initial barrier.
Yeah.
It's always that and that's where we exist, right? As Neuro also. It's like you get past that point, you get the call line, you get like the energy, you get the health aspects to get to the point where it's like, okay, I can manage it. You need to break that mold. And to be able to do that, I think, is the most important thing within society right now.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you guys, because I usually ask this in all our podcast episodes, what is both of yours individual daily routine? The reason I ask this is I think it's really interesting to see like down to the nitty gritty how people manage their daily living and even like the ups and downs. Do you have like things that you do that ground you or help you each day?
I talk to a lot of my friends and family.
Yeah.
So even if it's like a quick text, like I used to do this thing where like when I was commuting to work, like one day out of the week, I would just call a friend instead of listening to podcasts or music and just like talk to them on the ride back and just catch up with them. Because that helped ground me, just keeping up with people, staying in touch with people.
Yeah.
But otherwise, like startup world, like there's pretty much something different every day.
It's hard to say like daily routine because I feel like I exist within like weekly routines or like monthly routines because like it's like, okay, we need to prepare. Management equals preparation, right? Like management equals like, okay, I'll prepare a nice meal for my dog that I love.
That's a routine. I mean,
it is part of a routine, but I don't do that on a daily basis. And it grounds you too, right? Like, but it's knowing like, okay, I need to empathetically do this thing for my dog, you know, and I walk twice a day. But like, I don't explore creativity every day, or I don't explore my mind every day, but that is something that I put as my identity. Yeah. So but then I would do it, you know, like at some point. So from a daily routine perspective, like I wake up, I work out, like there's the standards, but from a lifelong, like what I do as a person, as defined as who I am, there is like how I care for people, like what you said, like the calling, like all these things I think are built from a lifelong of not daily routines, but just mental practice. Yeah.
So my one question for both of you is, what advice would you give yourself for when you first started Neuro to now? Like, is there anything you learned about building Neuro, the company, or interacting with customers, or just you yourself as people growing?
Man, there's so many. I would just say perseverance is the big one, because every time there was like massive roadblocks, that was like the biggest roadblock in the company. Like we figured out a way to get over that. And then there was another bigger hurdle, and it's just, you're always going to go through the ups and downs. And I think just not giving up, perseverance is big.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like you could be constantly stressed when you're starting a business. Yeah. You know, and sometimes that's not the best way, as you know, with management, like, and with pain, like that's not the best way to approach anything. Sometimes you need to just chill out. Yeah.
Do something for yourself.
Yeah. Do something for yourself. Like, and like, if I saw myself from 5 years ago, this uptight, you know, little piece, can I cuss on this? Like, piece of shit. Like, like I would just be like, dude, chill. Like, breathe and think and make better decisions. And I look at myself now and like, I've thankfully like grown up into that. Like, I think about that, it's funny, like you meet more mature business people and they're just like, oh, okay. Like I look at my dad, for example, you know, who's been in business for a long time. And it's like, don't worry about the small stuff. Yeah. You know, just there's things to focus on that are more important. And I'd probably give that advice.
Which would be like health and like mental wellness.
Yeah.
Like
all the things that you guys
do. I also think one thing that I realized, because especially in the startup, like you said, you can be, sometimes I feel like I'm dreaming. Like I can't even sleep well at night because I'm still thinking about work and like I can't get out of it.
But at the end of the day, how important is it is very important to like who you are. You want to be successful. You want to work at it. But at the end of the day, like what are the important things at the end of your life? Like the relationships, I think, are really important. And I would say if you're starting a business or anything, don't sacrifice your personal relationships at the cost of the business. Yeah. Yeah. And that was really difficult because everybody's like, don't do start up with your best friend. And then now I'm like, in hindsight, you're like, why wouldn't you? Like you trust that person. And as long as you start a foundation, you have an understanding like business can be hard, but our friendship comes first.
The only reason that it will not work is like because of all the negative effects of people. Greed, you know, like like whatever it is, like it's,
which I think can be mitigated if there's transparency too.
Totally.
Like if you're able to talk to each other.
It's like Ryan and I tell each other everything.
Yeah, because I was telling Ryan, like Julian and I, a lot of
you guys are best friends from college.
Exactly.
Right?
My co-founders, Julian and I, were best friends since college. Neuro, our other co-founder, like we're all family now, basically.
That's awesome.
And it's been really, really helpful. And I think one thing we're really good at too, and I think it's been really important, is to have fun. Like you always have to remind yourself, like, okay, this is fun.
It doesn't mean that like
Yeah.
you shouldn't get into like whatever arguments once in a while.
Yeah, no.
But it's like not everything's not rainbows and unicorns, you know. But at the same time, it's just like, dude, I'll tell Ryan everything. Like my life is not rainbows and unicorns. Our lives are like, you know, I was like.
But remember to have
like,
fun. That's super important.
It's I there's all these the vices of humans are what are those vices are what's going to prevent you from becoming successful.
Yeah.
Like they exist for a reason.
Yeah.
You're going to be successful no matter what if you live a life that you really believe in morally, psychologically, and peacefully.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we're going flying tomorrow. It's like something that was like, oh, we want to do this for ourselves.
Yeah.
And then I think in a lot of ways it'll make us better. Just
explain
like
what flying.
Oh, like getting a pilot's license.
Yeah.
We're taking drugs.
Let's explain what flying you're talking about. Yeah, so which I think is, I was going to ask you guys as the last question, what are you excited about, like moving, both with Neuro, but also yourself? I think that's really cool. Like, I know you're doing.
We're really excited. We're like looking at like, where can we buy a plane? Like,
we're excited about finding happiness. That's it.
Yeah.
Comfort.
And we've been at it for like over 5 years now. So like in that sense, you know, it's nice building the business, but it's also, you got to have fun along the way. Like I keep saying that over and over, and it sounds so cliche, but it's true.
By the way, it's not like in 5 years with hard work, we're not like a $500 million business.
Yeah.
You know, we're very comfortable where we are. And like, there's no element, like we work to the point and build ourselves to the point where we enjoy our lives a lot. And I think that translates into success in the business too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Success.
Because when you're so stressed all the time, like you're not going to make the best decisions.
True.
Because you're making a decision based on like a reactionary, like, you know, thought or something that's coming at you.
Yeah.
Versus like if you're more relaxed, you can look at it at a more macro level.
Yeah.
Life is good.
Aerial level.
That's a good note to end
Aerial
on.
level.
Cool. Well, thank you for joining me, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Enjoyed this
Thanks for having us,
conversation.
Thanks, Lee.